Humanities. Okay, today's question, how long you think you're going to live? Did you ever think about that? I know you guys are basically all, starting out your life adventure and you're young adults, and honestly, that question probably doesn't weigh on your mind too much and doesn't feel too pressing because you're at the beginning of your life still, and you got way more of your life ahead of you than you do behind you. At least that's barring any kind of like tragedy or unexpected event. However, I can promise you this, the older you get, the more that you'll start to wrestle with that question and start to think about it as you feel mortality kind of closing in. Take it from a guy that just turned 40 this year. Now, hey, in this day and age, living in America, a first world country with a good healthcare system, and I have, decent health insurance and everything, and live a relatively healthy lifestyle, I can probably reasonably expect to live roughly 80 years. I think the actual like life expectancy for a middle class American male is something like 77, which honestly that's quite a bit up from what like it would have been historically. If you go back 100 years ago, or say even 1,000 years ago, life expectancy was way lower for the vast majority of people. And actually, those numbers are a little bit skewed and probably not quite as accurate as you'd think because, at one time, many generations ago, the life expectancy was like around 40 or 45. So I would already been almost like maxed out. However, those numbers get skewed because back in that time, it was hard to make it out of childhood, and that throws the numbers off. But things as society has gotten better, at least in my view, better, and medical care has gotten better. We know more about nutrition. Our lives have become easier with modern technology. Life expectancy has steadily rose, but it would appear, at least I've always felt like it would appear that we're kind of at a hard cap of about maybe 100 years or so, depending on your genetics. That it doesn't seem like no matter how healthy you are, very many people are making it to 100 or more than that. And if you do, generally people that are up at that 90 to 100-year-old range, they're looking pretty old and decrepit. I know my grandfather's 96, about to turn 97, and he's really slipped in the last year or two. Now, he had a really good run. He made it 90 years of almost, impeccable health, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. Well, I found it really interesting. I've listened to a couple different guys, and I've included them onto this post today. A few guys that I've heard in interviews over the last about year and a half would be one is David Sinclair. He is one of the foremost anti-aging researchers from Harvard University. He's actually an Australian guy that lives over here in the United States and works at Harvard doing like anti-aging research. And the other guy that I'm including an article where he's profiled and a part of it is named Aubrey de Grey. He, I believe, is a British guy, if I remember right. Both of them are pretty interesting. They're pretty articulate, and they're world-renowned experts in their field. They both make some pretty big claims that, if you listen to Aubrey de Grey, who is covered in the article, and I would also encourage you to go check out some of his videos on YouTube. I didn't include all of those because I didn't want to lump too much stuff on you for just a normal daily assignment in humanities, but he's got a really long beard, looks like a Viking. Interesting way of talking, and he claims that we're about to hit some breakthroughs that he feels, basically the human lifespan is about to be open-ended. That he thinks the first people that will live 1,000 years, think about that a second, not 100, but 1,000 years, are alive right now, and they're gonna start getting treatments within the next 5 to 10 years that will just radically extend their lifespans, where they're starting to look at aging as more of a disease rather than just some inevitable process that happens. So this got me really tuned in because, like I said, I'm hitting 40. That's kind of midlife crisis age. I'm about halfway through the journey. And man, if I can do anything to extend my life, I would definitely like to do that, especially if they're quality years. I don't think hardly any people want to just live a really long span of life. If say you could live 200 years, but your last 100, you're going to be like my 96-year-old grandpa, whose health is really failing. Well, that doesn't seem like much fun. But if we could do some sort of treatments. If there's something that I could do to give me a 200 or 300 year lifespan, and I'll be basically like I am right now at maybe 30, 40, 50 years old, kind of in that range, man, I would be highly interested in that. And I'm guessing a lot of you would too. And if you aren't yet, you probably would be a couple decades down the road. So I've become fascinated by this stuff, and I want to do things and learn more about it to take steps that I can, reasonable steps that don't cost too much, to try to add some more years, hopefully more decades onto my life in the back end. Now, something that is not really, I think, controversial or cutting edge science, I've heard this said by many experts over the years, that your overall lifespan without any extra treatments or anything that would radically extend it, that basically 2/3 of your longevity is based on lifestyle choices. So, what do you eat? What are you putting in your mouth? How much exercise do you get? What do you have? Good mental health? You know what I mean? A calm mind. Do you have good relationships? So, that kind of stuff makes up about 2/3 of the pie of how long you could reasonably expect to live. And the other 1/3 is genetics, which we have no control over that. That's just what your mom and dad gave to you. That's your genetic code. And like if, maybe diabetes or cancer or heart disease runs in your family, well, that's a knock against you. But just know that just because like maybe your grandparents died young or your parents are in poor health, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have that same fate. And that's all the cutting edge research aside, that I found that encouraging, that, just me making good choices can definitely increase my probability of living longer. So that's something that is under our control. Now, when we start talking about like living many decades past 100, like getting up into the 150, 200 or more year kind of lifespan, that obviously can't happen under normal circumstances. That would have to have some outside technology coming in. One of the processes of aging is, and I remember hearing about this way back when I was in middle school, and it was actually, we went out to Jackson Community College and they had some researcher come in. I forget exactly what his title was, but he said, you know what, if you want to be rich someday, what you would want to put your money into right now, and this is back in like the early 1990s, is telomere research in the human genome project, where they were at that time mapping out like DNA and figuring all that out. And on each of your DNA strands, which that's the little code that makes you who you are. Everybody's DNA is slightly different. We all have a human DNA, but everyone's is unique and slightly different. It's what your parents gave to you. Well, your DNA, that double helix strand that you've probably seen in, I don't know, some movie or TV show or Jurassic Park or something like that, every time your cells replicate, that DNA strand splits and it duplicates itself. And at the end of your DNA strand, you have telomeres, which is basically like the cap on the end of your DNA strand. And every time it splits, the telomeres get a little shorter and a little shorter and a little shorter. And that directly correlates to like the age you feel, your biological age. Well, they're looking into ways now where they could stop that or reverse it, make your telomeres stop reducing or keeping them longer, which honestly, I don't totally understand that, but it's something I'm interested in. And I'm hoping they do have some breakthroughs. I know David Sinclair, now he's the guy that you're going to see in the TED Talk, which actually that's kind of an older one from over a decade back, but some of the advice he gives there I think is pretty sound and it still holds true today. He's tipped me off to a few different supplements that maybe I'll get into in a follow-up interview or a follow-up commentary video. But know that I, for a couple years now, have been taking a few of the supplements that are fairly cheap that David Sinclair is kind of prescribed or recommended. And I don't know, hit me up in a couple decades and we'll see how the aging process is going, because I'm going to be one of his guinea pigs. Now, I don't recommend you guys go out and get a bunch of supplements or anything like that right now. Heck, you're all young. You don't have to worry about it yet. But I do recommend that you watch the video, read the article, and just start thinking about this a little bit. Now, you guys are young. Most important thing I think for you at this age is just overall lead a healthy lifestyle, because it leads to a better life. And then also, don't engage in stupid, risky behavior, because one thing, that can throw a wrench in everything is you go out and do something stupid like driving drunk or getting in a car with somebody that is, it doesn't matter what your life expectancy and overall health is, that can be game over just in the blink of an eye with some accident. So minimize those kind of risks in your life, and be smart, use common sense. But once we get past that point, I think this is something that all of us should probably, that want to live for a while and have a good life and be here with our kids potentially, or grandkids, or maybe great great grandkids and those future generations. We should probably tune into this a little bit. And by the time you're maybe in your 30s or 40s, getting up to my age, this will probably interest you quite a bit more. And I'm hoping that a few decades down the road, prime time for you guys, your generation, that they should, according to these experts, have some pretty big breakthroughs, and hopefully some very affordable style like supplements and treatments that can basically slow down, or maybe, fingers crossed, even halt the aging process. You even listen to some of these guys that maybe they're being overly optimistic, but they talk about ways where in animals, they've actually been able to reduce the age of an animal. So like a mouse that's looking old, getting to the end of its life, giving it certain supplements and stuff, and certain regimens of treatments that will actually make it appear younger, right? Anyway, I find that stuff fascinating. And I know you guys are young, like this would probably be a topic that appeals to an older audience a little bit more, but I figured, hey, you're never too young to start thinking about this and just having this whole topic on your radar, because I imagine there'll be some major breakthroughs on the horizon, and you might want to be tuned into that, because this will probably be something that's pretty important to you down the road. So check out the video and skim over the article, check it out, and then if you're really interested in this, or if you know somebody that you think it might benefit, an older loved one, family member, or friend, you might want to tip them off and kind of tell them about some of the things you're learning here. I also highly recommend going down the rabbit hole on this, because I'm attaching one video and one article, but man, there's a bale of information and videos and articles and stuff out there, and resources that are on this topic. So go check out some more videos made by those guys if you're interested. Again, their names are David Sinclair and Aubrey DeGray. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. Think they're really interesting, and yeah, I definitely try to check in with them from time to time and see what they have going on, because it was about a year ago I heard Aubrey DeGray speak, and he said he predicted within 5 years, so that would be 4 years from now, by about 2025, that there will be some major breakthroughs that are coming out and hitting the market that will maybe not make you live forever, but it'll dramatically slow down the aging process and add potentially decades onto your overall life expectancy, and not just more time, but quality time, which is what we would all be, I think, most interested in. All right, so check out these videos, and then don't forget to respond to today's Q&A. If you have any other follow-up questions for me or comments, by all means, hit me up, and I'll be happy to get back with you. See you guys.